his lakeside party, my family didn't look to me for help. To them, I was just the disappointment who spent her time playing nurse, while my siblings climbed the corporate ladder. My mother had literally just introduced me to a wealthy guest as the family babysitter. But as they stood paralyzed by the shore, screaming in terror, my training kicked in. I pulled my nephew from the depths and had him breathing before the ambulance even arrived. Yet the real shock didn't happen by the lake. It happened an hour later in the hospital waiting room. My family was still treating me like a glorified assistant until the ER chief walked through the doors, stopped dead in his tracks, and asked, "Doctor, why are you in the waiting room?" You should have seen my mother's head snap toward me. I arrived at my brother's lavish lakeside estate in Sacramento just as the afternoon sun began to hit the water. The driveway was packed with high-end luxury vehicles, and a massive white tent stood on the manicured lawn. My brother, Adrian, was celebrating his recent corporate promotion, and my mother had spent the last 2 weeks ensuring the guest list was filled with the city's elite. I slipped through the side gate, smoothing down my simple cotton dress, instantly feeling out of place among the designer linen outfits and expensive jewelry surrounding me. My name is Natalie. I'm 27 years old, and to my family, I am the ultimate black sheep. While Adrian and my older sister, Vanessa, pursued high-paying executive paths, I chose a very different road. A road that meant missing family dinners, working 80-hour weeks, and constantly carrying the smell of antiseptic on my skin. As soon as my mother caught sight of me, her smile faltered. She hurried over, her eyes scanning my tired face with immediate disapproval. "You actually made it," she muttered, her voice dripping with passive aggression. "I half expected you to call out claiming some emergency. I really don't understand why you waste your youth pulling double shifts just to keep playing nurse, Natalie. Look at your brother. That's what real success looks like." I opened my mouth to reply, but she already turned away, entirely blind to the exhaustion I'd carried straight from the hospital floor. I tried to blend into the background, grabbing a glass of water and finding a quiet spot near the patio edge. I just wanted to watch my nieces and nephews play without becoming the target of another family lecture. But in my family, structural hierarchy is everything, and my presence as the underachiever couldn't be ignored for long. Vanessa strutted over, her diamond bracelets clinking against her glass as she smirked down at me. "Still living on takeout and coffee, Natalie? You know, Adrian's company is looking for a corporate wellness coordinator. It pays actual money. You should really stop playing nurse and grow up." Before I could even formulate a response to her condescending remark, my mother swept back toward us, trailing a wealthy, elegantly dressed older couple behind her. These were the Davenports, major regional developers Adrian had been trying to court for months. My mother's eyes widened slightly when she realized I was standing right there, and a look of pure, calculated panic flashed across her face. She stepped forward smoothly, subtly shifting her body to block me from the light. "Arthur, Evelyn, I'd love for you to meet the family," my mother cooed, her voice practically dripping with synthetic warmth. She gestured to Vanessa and Adrian with immense pride, detailing their corporate titles. Then, her eyes landed on me. Without missing a single beat, she smiled tightly and said, "And this is my youngest, Natalie. She's helping out as our temporary babysitter for the afternoon layout." I froze, the betrayal hitting me like a physical blow. The humiliation burned in my throat, but I forced myself to stay silent. I wasn't going to make a scene and give them another reason to call me difficult. I quietly backed away from the Davenports, slipping through the crowd toward the edge of the expansive lawn that sloped gently down to the private boat dock. The party was in full swing now, loud laughter and the clinking of glasses echoing from the main tent, but my focus instantly shifted to the water. The lake was deep, murky, and bordered by a steep drop-off just past the wooden planks of the pier. Suddenly, a sharp, terrified gasp cut through the ambient noise of the music. It was Adrian's wife, Clara. She was standing near the edge of the dock, her hands pressed tightly against her face as she stared out at the water. "Where's Toby?" she whispered, her voice rapidly rising in panic. "Where is his life jacket?" My heart skipped a beat. My eyes scanned the water, and a cold dread settled deep in my stomach. 30 feet out, a bright red, empty child's life jacket was floating lazily on the surface. It had slipped right off him. "Toby!" Adrian roared, dropping his drink as he ran toward the shoreline. The entire party ground to a sudden halt. The wealthy guests, my mother, Vanessa, they all rushed to the water's edge, completely paralyzed by fear. Clara was screaming hysterically, and Adrian was frantically spinning around, pointing blindly at the water, but taking no action. They were completely frozen, trapped in a nightmare and entirely useless in a crisis. But while they panicked, my clinical training took over, wiping out every trace of hesitation. I sprinted past them, dove headfirst off the dock, and plunged into the dark water. The cold water shocked my system, but my mind remained perfectly clear, locked into an emergency protocol I'd practiced 1,000 times. I opened my eyes in the murky depths, kicking hard toward the area beneath the floating life jacket. Through the dim light, I caught a glimpse of a small form sinking into the shadows. I reached out, my fingers wrapping around the fabric of Toby's shirt, and pulled him tightly against my chest as I fought my way back to the surface. I broke the water, gasping for air, and swam aggressively toward the shore. The moment my feet hit the muddy bottom, I carried his limp body onto the grass. He was completely unresponsive, his skin pale, and his lips tinged with blue. "Oh my God, he's dead," Clara wailed, collapsing into Adrian's arms. My mother was hyperventilating, and Vanessa was frantically searching her phone to call 911, her hands shaking so violently she could barely type. "Stand back. Give me room," I commanded, my voice cutting through their hysterics with an authority they had never heard from me before. I knelt beside my nephew, immediately checking his pulse and airway. Nothing. He wasn't breathing. I tilted his head back, cleared his airway, and delivered 2 quick rescue breaths before locking my hands together on his tiny chest. I began compressions, counting the rhythm out loud in a steady, unyielding cadence. 1, 2, 3, 4. My family watched in stunned, terrified silence as the babysitter they had just dismissed took absolute control of life and death. I compressed and breathed, refusing to stop, until finally, Toby violently gasped, coughed up a rush of lake water, and began to cry. The high-pitched wail of the arriving ambulance finally broke the stunned silence on the shore. The paramedics rushed onto the lawn, quickly securing Toby onto a gurney and prepping him for transport to the nearest hospital. Adrian and Clara scrambled into the back of the emergency vehicle, while the rest of the family hastily abandoned the ruined party to follow closely behind in their luxury cars. I didn't even bother changing out of my soaked, muddy dress. I simply got into my own car and drove straight to the hospital, my adrenaline keeping me completely alert. When I walked into the crowded ER waiting room, the tension was palpable. My family was huddled together in a corner, looking disheveled but already attempting to regain their usual posture of wealthy superiority. The moment my mother saw me approach, her anxious expression shifted back into a familiar look of condescension. "Well, thank goodness the real medical professionals are in charge now," she whispered loudly, looking askance at my damp hair and stained clothes. Adrian stepped forward, running a hand through his hair, his brief moment of gratitude completely swallowed by his regular arrogance. "Look, Natalie, thanks for pulling him out, but we need to let the actual staff handle the serious work. You're just going to get in the way here." Vanessa nodded in agreement, pulling out her wallet and tossing a $20 bill onto the plastic chair next to me.
"She's right.
Why don't you make yourself useful and go fetch us some coffee from the cafeteria? We're going to be here a while." The $20 bill fluttered onto the plastic chair, a stark reminder of exactly how low I ranked in their eyes. I didn't touch it. I just stood there, looking at my family, marveling at how quickly they had reverted right back to their comfortable habits of dismissal and disrespect. But before I could even utter a response to Vanessa's insult, the heavy, secure double doors leading to the main trauma bays swung wide open. The frantic chatter of the waiting room seemed to instantly quiet down as Dr. Vance, the formidable chief of emergency medicine, stepped out into the public area. He was flanked by 2 senior attending physicians and a pair of charge nurses, all of them looking incredibly intense. Adrian immediately smoothed his jacket and took a step forward, preparing to use his corporate clout to demand a private update on his son. My mother put on her most refined smile, stepping up right beside him. But Dr. Vance didn't even blink in their direction. His sharp eyes scanned the crowded room, bypassing the expensive suits and designer outfits entirely until they locked directly onto me. He stopped dead in his tracks, his serious expression instantly shifting into one of pure, utter shock. "Dr. Vance?" he called out, his booming voice echoing off the sterile walls of the waiting area. He hurried past my stunned family, walking straight up to me with his hand extended. "What on earth are you doing sitting out here in the public waiting room? We've been frantically paging you for the incoming multi-trauma protocol, and your team said you were off shift for a family event." My mother's head snapped toward me so fast, I thought she'd give herself whiplash. Her mouth fell open, her eyes darting between my mud-stained dress and the chief of the entire department. "Doctor," she choked out, her voice cracking under the sudden, immense weight of the revelation. Dr. Vance looked between my stunned family and my damp clothes, picking up on the heavy silence instantly. I offered him a calm, professional smile. "I was just leaving, Dr. Vance. I had a family emergency to look after, but the patient is stabilized now. I'll change into my scrubs and be in trauma bay 2 within 10 minutes. "Excellent. We need our chief resident on the floor," he replied, nodding sharply before turning back through the secure doors. I turned to face my family. The smug arrogance had completely vanished from Adrian's face, and Vanessa looked paralyzed, her hand still hovering near the $20 bill she had tossed at me. My mother was trembling, her voice barely a whisper. "Natalie, you're a doctor? The chief resident? Why didn't you tell us?" "Because you never bothered to listen," I said quietly, looking down at them one last time. "You were too busy mocking my career to care about what I actually do." I picked up the $20 bill from the chair, handed it back to a speechless Vanessa, and walked through the electronic doors into the secure medical zone. I left them behind in the waiting room, exactly where they belonged. What would you have done if your family treated you like a total stranger? Have you ever had a moment where the truth completely silenced your doubters? Or our community reaches? Type the city you are watching stories on your screen right now for more unbelievable twists.